Well, thanks, Steve. Yeah, it's been my pleasure, man, as well. My name is Kevin Olson. I'm a recovered alcoholic. I was separated from alcohol February 18th of 2001, which makes me 21 years sober as of today, through God's grace. And my home group is the Primary Purpose Group of Calgary, Alberta, Canada. And my sponsor's name is Daryl D. I'm a devoted, active, enthusiastic, grateful member of Alcoholics Anonymous. And I'm most happy to be here. What an incredible pleasure to quite literally be speaking to people from all over the world right now. This is really awesome. People from everywhere, from Sweden to South Africa, United States, all over Canada. It's very cool. And yeah, glad to be here, and glad to be certainly a part of the Big Book Compendium. Great to get to know Steve and get to know Summer, and get to share this program and our program of recovery and the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous with people from all over the world. And it's something that I feel deeply passionate about. You know, I would say Alcoholics Anonymous didn't save my life. Alcoholics Anonymous has given me a life, because I didn't bring much of a life to save, to speak of, when I got to AA. When I got to AA, I was 22 years old, and I'd been in and out of treatment centers and in and out of psychiatric wards and mental hospitals for 5 years. I went to my first AA meeting when I was 17 years old, before I was even legally old enough to drink. I was already headed to AA. I'd been drinking daily by the time I was 14. Using drugs, and other outside assorted issues daily by the time I was 16. And I'm one of those guys. I'm one of those guys that, like, right out of the gate, from the very first time alcohol touched my lips, I don't know if I was born an alcoholic, guys, but the first time I took a drink, an alcoholic was born. There's absolutely no question about that. The physical allergy that Dr. Silkworth talks about is very strong in me. From the very moment I took alcohol into my body, I had a very abnormal and profound experience, and spent a lot of time and a lot of pain in my life trying to replicate that experience. And of course, as a result of doing that, like most alcoholics, I entered the well-known stages of a spree. And I'd come out of that spree emerging remorseful, with a firm resolution not to do that again. And I'm never going to do that again. And I could see clearly that I was hurting people. I could see clearly that I was destroying my life and hurting everyone I ever cared about, and destroying everything I ever loved. I could see it. I loved playing guitar. I loved playing baseball. I loved doing all these things. And I sold all those things out for drinking. I love my parents. I love my friends. I sold all those things out for drinking. And ultimately, it began to erode every area, every facet of my life. Mental, physical, financial, and certainly spiritual. And, living that way is a very difficult and painful thing. And a lot of people are under the mistaken impression, as I was, that all I needed to do was stop drinking and everything would be okay. That all I needed to do was just put the plug in the jug and go to a lot of meetings and I would be fine. And I tried to do that for 5 years, guys. For 5 years, from the ages of 17 and 22, I went to Alcoholics Anonymous meetings on a regular basis. I went to AA meetings for sometimes up to 5 meetings a day. Quite literally 5 meetings a day. I could take you through my city and show you where each of the 5 meetings was. Okay. And man, I was suffering today. What I understand, I was suffering from untreated alcoholism and sobriety, because I would go to those 5 meetings a day and I would not drink, and I would get home at the end of the day and I would not feel better. I would feel worse. I was in excruciating mental and physical and spiritual pain. on a regular basis, and mental, emotional, and spiritual pain, mental, emotional, and spiritual pain. And it was just a brutal time of my life. And the fact is, you know, when I remember being asked to speak probably a couple of years ago at an Al-Anon meeting. And one of the, I had met some of these Al-Anons, and they had heard me speak, and they wanted me to come to speak to their group, and happy to do that, of course, always. I always support the program of Al-Anon. Of course, Al-Anon probably saved my family. Al-Anon probably saved my father's life. Because at one point, behind my drinking and my drug abuse, my father went into a dark depression, watching his son die and not being able to do anything about it and feeling personally responsible for that. He went into a dark depression and very nearly committed suicide on his own. My alcoholism nearly destroyed my family. I remember going to this Al-Anon meeting anyway, and this mom asked me, you know, so I do my talk, and at the end of the talk, this mom asks me this question, Q&A kind of thing, and she said, when my daughter does these things, does she know that she's harming me? Does she know? And I had to think about it for a second. I had to apply it to my own life, and I had to ask myself, you know, did I know that I was hurting my parents when I was doing these things? And the answer is yes. I knew. But what people don't understand, I believe, about the alcoholic condition and what makes alcoholism different from heavy drinkers is that the knowledge and the guilt and the shame that I felt for hurting the people that I loved did not make me want to drink less. That guilt and that pain and that shame that I felt made me want to drink more than anything. And that's what Al-Anon, and that's what that mom didn't understand about her daughter. And it's certainly not what I understood about my relationship with my parents and my own alcoholism. And one of the things that I love to say, one of the things that I think distinguishes AA from anything else is that we do not have a program here where I have simply been taught how to live and accept with the mess that I've created and stay sober in the mess. Not at all. This thing rockets 1,000 miles beyond that. And it was an absolutely pivotal and revolutionary moment in my life when I began to approach these amends for the first time. And I began to realize that going through this work with the help of God, with the help of a sponsor, I was actually able to not just live in the mess, I was able to begin cleaning the mess up. And I was able to begin changing my life. And that was a revolutionary moment for me. And I think that steps 8 and 9 are really one of the most crucial actions that I took in my life in the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. Step 5, yes, it's great. Of course, it's a big event, yes. But the experience that I had going and knocking on that door and beginning to approach the people that I had harmed, and then feeling that I could actually clean these things up, that I could actually change my life, and I could change the tone of my life, and thereby change my personality, change my character, change my relationships in my life with these people again, and repair the damage that I had done, was a really profound thing. And it's one of the greatest things that I've ever done in my life. And the level of freedom that I felt after finishing step 9, and to the best of my ability, guys, I want you to know, like, step 9 in my life is finished. To the extent that I can, every name, everything, every problem, every guilt, every shame that I had on step 8, everything on my list today, I stand here 44 years old, 21 years sober. My life is clean today. My life is clean, and I like it that way. I like it that way, okay? Because my life used to be a dumpster fire, inside and out, by any measure. So I want to talk a little bit about tactically how I went ahead and did steps 8 and 9. And what I was taught by my sponsor, step 9, and my sponsor today talks about all the time in step 9. At the beginning of the 12 and 12, it says good judgment, a careful sense of timing, courage, and prudence. These are the qualities we shall need when we take step 9. And I want you to know that I had none of those. Okay? I did not have good judgment. I did not have a careful sense of timing. I did not have courage, nor did I have prudence, which is why, first of all, I needed to do this with someone else. I think one of the truest lines in the entire big book is the line, it's in step 5. It says, solitary self-appraisal is insufficient. Okay? Me on my own, looking at my step 8 list, I'm going to have a real good idea of exactly what I need to do and exactly how I need to approach these people. And I was always wrong about who and what and why and where and when and what my motivations were. All of that stuff is wrong. Solitary self-appraisal is insufficient. My sponsor is the one that I allow to have good judgment, a careful sense of timing, courage, my sponsor's courage, my sponsor's belief in me that I could go out and do these things and clean these things up. And then, of course, my sponsor's prudence, my sponsor's helping me to be prudent, pulling me back from making certain amends at certain times and pushing me forward to do other ones at other times, and just making that decision to turn my will and my life over to the care of my sponsor's judgment in those things, man. Okay, that's the first thing I really want to say about it. So when I got to step 8, I did what I was told to do. My sponsor just said, okay, I mean, it's pretty clear. There's not a lot of debate room in step 8. It's made a list of all persons we had harmed. Okay, that's the first thing we do. So that's what we do. We make a list of all the persons we had harmed, and that's what I did. And today, when I sponsor guys, I'm privileged and grateful to sponsor, many men. And I've done this work with many men. And I show up for guys just as my sponsor showed up for me when I needed him. Because I'll never forget, I made that list of all the persons that I had harmed, just this kind of name dump of lists on a name. And I saw it. And I began to have almost like a panic attack because it felt so difficult and so unmanageable and so terrifying. Where would I even begin? Okay. And I called my sponsor, Gary, and I was on the verge of a breakdown, and he knew it. And Gary did what I hope I would do for one of my sponsors. And Gary came over. Gary showed up for me. I'm a product of strong sponsorship. Okay. I have had incredible sponsors and mentors in my life. Thank God for sponsorship, and thank God for sponsors in Alcoholics Anonymous. Thank God for guys like Gary who came and showed up. We can fake caring, but you can't fake showing up for people. And Gary showed up for me that day, and he sat down with me and showed me how he was taught to do a step 8 list. Okay. Now, it doesn't give this direct action in the book. Okay. But it does talk about in step in the 12 and 12 that there are certain amends we can make right away. There are certain amends we'll do when we feel we're reasonably ready, and there's certain amends that ought to be delayed till much later. So what I did with Gary in terms of step 8, what he taught me to do, and what I do with my sponsees today is break it down. And Joe and Charlie talk about this a lot. Right now, later, maybe, and never. Okay, based on my current level of willingness to go make those amends. So it might be someone that, the guy's my best friend, but I feel like I did some bad things, and we're still really good friends, and I'd love to go make that amends with him right now. Okay, great. He's in the right now list, right? Then obviously, well, that other person, that was an ex-coworker, and I don't feel good about the way that ended, and I feel very, shameful about it, and I'm not ready to do that one yet. Okay, I'll put it on the maybe list. And then there's, of course, those other ones where it's like, no, forget him. He did more harm to me than I'll ever do to him. I'm over my dead body. Okay. So we put that in the never list, or the over my dead body list. Okay. And that's what I did. And I broke all of those amends, all the people on that name dump list. I started to categorize them. Okay. Right now, later, maybe, never. Okay. Based on my current level of willingness to make those amends. And immediately already it began to feel more manageable, better. Okay. Now, a couple other things that I do. Most people owe amends. Most alcoholics, we get around, man. We get around sometimes. Okay. So most of us owe amends in more than one geographic location. So you guys may not know these names, but when I got sober, I owed amends in a city called Calgary, where I currently live, a place called Medicine Hat, where I went to high school, and then a place called Lethbridge. So these are just 3 different towns, and those are where I owed amends. Okay. And I needed to make a right now, later, maybe list. Right now, later, maybe never for Calgary. Right now, later, maybe never for Lethbridge. Right now, later, maybe never for Medicine Hat. And I've got sponsees that owe amends all over the place. Okay. I've had sponsees that owed amends in Czechoslovakia when Czechoslovakia was still a country. I've had people that have owed amends, all over the United States. Oddly enough, there's a lot of amends. A lot of guys end up owing amends in Las Vegas. Not sure why that is, but anyway, lots of guys owe amends in all-inclusive resorts in Mexico, right? So just to say, again, we're just trying to get organized, okay, a little bit in how we're going to proceed in this step 8. And so that's what I do. I make a geographic list. And then the other thing, and this was so huge for me, guys, was anytime in one of those amends I owed money, I made a little note on how much money I owed, a reasonable number, my best estimation of how much that was. Okay. Every time there was a person I owed them money. And this always happens with sponsees of mine too, where they'll show me their step 8 list, and it's like obviously not, finished. They've got like 5 people on there. It's like, okay, well, let's dig, maybe a little bit deeper. And I say to them, have you included all the cell phone companies and the banks and the payday loan companies and your credit cards and all those things? And I always just see their face fall like, oh no, I got to put all that on there. It's like, absolutely, man. Absolutely. Because I think that AA, my life anyway, my experience is that this is a lot about financial sobriety as well. Okay. And financial recovery and getting clean in terms of that. Okay. Because when I got to AA, I always say I owed $42,000 in debt on 2 unsecured credit cards at 19% compound interest. And I was making about $25,000 a year. Okay. And you don't have to be an accountant to figure out I was not going to get on top of that in any way. And I was getting phone calls from credit card companies 5 times a day. And it was preying on my mind like a mantis. And I almost literally committed suicide behind $42,000 in debt because it was weighing on me so heavily. And so I went through that financial list and made all those items. And then the nice thing, and I do this with my sponsees, man, we get to the end and we add it all up. And then the nice thing is at the bottom, we've got one number. That's it. And that's the number. Okay. Because if I don't have that number, if I'm not actually taking financial inventory of where I'm at there, then the number in my mind looks like, have you ever seen that thing of like the New York, or rather US national debt in Times Square? It's just like trillions of dollars, and it just like every second there's like another, $1 million added. It's just, that's what the number looks like in my mind, right? But this is about reality. This is about sitting down and getting prudent and getting real about how things are looking. And I take that number, and that's it. It's not going to get any worse than that. That's the number, and we can start working towards that. Okay. And so that's how I went about making a step 8 list. That's how I was taught by my sponsor. Gary came over that day, and that's what we did. We sat down and we made all those lists. And then Gary gave me another one of the keys to the kingdom, man. He gave me one of the keys to the kingdom in that moment, because the second part of step 8 says we became willing to make amends to them all. Okay. Made a list of all people that we'd harmed, and then became willing to make amends to them all. Well, how did we become willing? I mean, in the most tactical, logical sense of the word, what can we do to become willing? Well, certainly we can pray for it. I mean, that's what the book tells us to do. If we don't have the willingness, we pray until it comes. And I'm all for that. I'm a big believer in that. But Gary gave me a tool that I want to share with all of you that really helped me to become willing. Okay. And what Gary had me do, moving into step 9 now, he said, Kevin, I want you to take 3 names off of the right now list, people that you feel comfortable with and you're willing to make the amends anyway. I want you to pick 3 names off the right now list, and we're going to start with those this week. Okay. I'll talk in a moment about how I actually tactically have been taught to go about doing a step 9. But what happened to me is that I went out that week and I did those 3 amends as I was indicated and taught to do by Gary. And how do you guys think I felt? How do you think I felt when I came home and I did those first 3 amends? I actually did them, and I actually went and had those conversations. And like 98% of the time, their reaction was, I'm just glad that you're sober. Keep doing what you're doing. We're good. And I was like, what? Like it was, and I'll never forget. I came home and I called Gary and I said, man, I had this conversation and this thing happened. And I can't believe it. I'm absolutely amazed, Gary. Those words came out of my mouth. I'm absolutely amazed. And he said, Kevin, stop right there. He said, what does our book say? Our book says that we will be amazed. Okay. And the truth is that if I do exactly what is indicated in that book, I will get exactly what they got. Okay. It is no doubt, of course, you're amazed. I expected you to be amazed because we're doing this work as it's laid out in this book. Okay. So what happens for me in terms of that willingness is that suddenly I get so much spiritual juice from doing those first few amends that little by little, what do you think starts to happen to the names in the later list? They start to become right nows, and the maybes start to become laters. And even over time, as I do more of these amends and I get more of that spiritual empowerment as a result of doing this work and seeing that my life is becoming cleaned up and that I don't have to live in this mess anymore, that this isn't just about physical sobriety, this is about a completely holistic change to my entire life. Guess what, guys? Those nevers, those over my dead bodies, suddenly I'm going to find myself a little more willing to go take a look at those. Okay. So I really believe in that, starting with the right nows. And what I do with my sponsees is I say, pick 3 that are on the right now list that are not family. I don't want them to start with family because I only had one chance really to make an amend to my mom. I only had one chance to make an amend, to our brothers and sisters or so on. Okay. So I think it's good to get a few under our belt before we go talk to family. You guys with me on that? You understand what I'm talking about? The family ones are really, really important, I think. Not that any are more important than others, but to go talk to an old work colleague versus going to make an amend to my father, it's good to have a little experience, I think. Okay. I think that just makes sense. So we go to the right now list. We pick 3 people off the right now list that are not family, and we start there. Okay. And I want to share with you a little bit about what my sponsor taught me in terms of tactically how to do a step 9. Okay. Because in terms of how we actually execute on a step 9, it doesn't really give us a lot of specific direction in the book. And so, it tells us, about when and how and all the different types of amends that we might want to make. And it tells us, that we sit down and we're ready to talk and to all that kind of good stuff. But what I was taught by my sponsor in terms of exactly how to do it, there's really 4 points, guys. And I share this with anyone because it's been extremely useful and extremely helpful for me. Okay, so number 1, I explain to them why I'm there. Okay, so for example, it might sound like, as you know, I'm in AA, I'm in a program of recovery, and one of the things that we need to do in order to stay well is make amends to people that we've harmed. And I believe that you are one of those people. I believe that I've harmed you, and that's what I'd like to talk to you about today. Okay. And incidentally, guys, I want to talk about the word amend as well. What that means and what we're really trying to do there. So step 9 obviously says make direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. Okay. Well, it doesn't say that we apologize. Okay. Or that we're there to say sorry. Most of us know I've apologized and said sorry my whole life. And I really believe that an apology without change is just manipulation. That's all it is. Okay. Amend means to change. Okay. Up here in Canada, we have a thing they call the Criminal Code of Canada. Okay. And when they amend the Criminal Code of Canada, they don't just sit around and apologize to it. Okay. They change it. That's what it means to amend the Criminal Code of Canada. It means that we're going to change. And what I needed to do, guys, I needed to change myself. Okay. And when I went to go make these amends, I needed to show evidence of change. Okay. And I'm a big believer as well that steps 6 and 7 are intimately tied with steps 8 and 9. Okay. Intimately tied. If I go into steps 8 and 9 without having made any progress or change through God's grace in steps 6 and 7, then I'm just the same dirtbag that I was when I did the things in the first place. Okay. You guys ever heard the saying, you take an alcoholic horse thief and take away alcohol, what do you got? A horse thief. That's what you got. Okay. You got a sober horse thief. And I needed to change. I needed to change fundamentally my character, fundamentally my personality, personality change sufficient to overcome alcoholism. Okay. I began that process in step 6 and 7 through God's grace. Now I'm going to go out into the world as a man who is beginning to change. Okay. As an adult, as a grown up that's beginning to change. Okay. And I'm going to recognize what these defects are when I'm speaking to the people that I'm making amends to. Okay. So the first thing that I need to do is introduce why I'm there. Again, I'm a member of AA, as you may know. It's necessary for me to make amends to people that I've harmed in order for me to stay sober. And I think that you're one of these people that I've harmed, and that's why I'm here today. Okay. Now you may say to me, well, hang on, I don't want to break my anonymity to people that I'm going to talk to. I'm going to go talk to people that I have professional relationships with. I need to make amends to, but I don't want them to know I'm in AA. It's fine. Okay. What I would do in that scenario was just say, I'm going through a process in my life of changing some things. And one of the things I'm aspiring to do is just make amends to people in my life that I've harmed in the past. And I believe that you're one of those people. See, I haven't said anything about AA. I'm just saying I'm trying to make a change. That's it. Okay. And that's what we're really aspiring to do in step 9. Change myself, change my relationships, change my life. Okay. So that's number 1, why I'm there. Number 2, what did I do? Okay. And I want to talk about the actions, the specific actions that I did that harmed the person. Okay. But I think it's also important to tie that action to a defect of character. Okay. So it's not just, I stole your car. It's when I stole your car that was extremely dishonest and inconsiderate and selfish. It's not just that I missed your birthday and didn't show up when I said that I would. It's I missed your birthday and that was really selfish and inconsiderate of me. And I was dishonest and I lied to you that I was sick that day, but the truth was I was drinking. And that was very dishonest of me. Okay. I want to tie the amend that I'm making, the action, not the amend that I'm making, but the harm that I did, I want to tie it to a specific defect of character. Okay. And then I want to show evidence of change as well. Okay. I want to say, I want you to know, today when people invite me to their birthday, I want you to know that I'm the kind of guy who shows up today. Okay. I want you to know that I no longer steal people's cars. I want you to know that I no longer hurt and abuse people. I'm no longer like that. And I have begun to make these changes in my life, and I want you to know that. Okay. So that's number 2. Number 1, why I'm there. Number 2, how did I harm them? Number 3, in my experience, guys, is where the real magic happens. Where the real magic happens in the third part is when I say to them, is there anything else? Any other ways that I harmed you that I haven't mentioned that you want to talk about? I am here to listen. Okay. That is where, in my experience, a lot of the real incredible change in relationships with my family happened. And I often talk about that with my father, the amend that I made with my dad. In that moment, when I opened that channel of communication, the thing that he shared with me that I did that harmed him more than anything else was something I never, ever would have guessed. I didn't know. And I'm not saying, oh, I was in a blackout, I don't remember doing it. What I'm saying is I was so selfish and inconsiderate that I couldn't even perceive that the thing that I did to him would even be harmful for him, let alone the most harmful thing that I did. But it was something that I did that just told him, Dad, I do not care about you. I don't care about you. I care about drinking. That's all that I cared about. And so he had that opportunity to share that with me. And that was a profound change in his and my relationship forever. I also like to say that my experience is that in step 6 and 7, if I want to get a really, really good look at my defects of character, if I want to get a really good look at how my selfishness and self-centeredness harms people, how my dishonesty and inconsideration harms people, if I really want to know that, this is where it happens. Open that door and let people tell me in their experience with me, their reality about how my defects of character, not my drinking, but how my defects of character caused another person harm. Okay. And if I'm willing to listen and I'm willing humbly to take that in, man, that's where I'll find spiritual gold dust in terms of change from the inside out. You guys with me on that? That's where I find an incredible level of humility because it's irrefutable. Okay. I cannot deny that for them, that was their reality and their experience with me and my defects of character in that moment. Then finally, the 4th point. So again, just to recap, number 1, why I'm here. Number 2, how I harmed them. Number 3, is there anything else? Okay. And then the most important part of that, of course, is listen. Keep my mouth shut. I don't debate. I don't argue. I don't justify. I don't say, well, yeah, sure, you did that, but I only did that because you did that. Keep my mouth shut and listen in that moment and let them help me in that moment. That's what they're really doing. We think we're there to help them. We're there. They're helping us. Do you understand that? They're helping us in that moment to change inside our character and our personality. And then lastly, finally, what do I need to do to make this to amend our relationship? What do I need to do to fix this? And then what my sponsor, the exact words that my sponsor told me to say are, I'm willing to do whatever you ask. Okay? I'm willing to do whatever you ask. Now, I want you guys to know 98% of the time, really 98% of the time, it's, no, I'm just glad you're sober. This was really good. We're good now. I'm glad you came and talked to me. That's it. Rarely our book says, rarely do we fail to make satisfactory progress. Okay. And if a person does throw us out of their office, as the book says, or out of the coffee shop or whatever it might be, we've done our best to clean up our side of the street. Okay. Some amends will never be able to be made, and that's just the way it is. I have, there's one person on my list that I doubt, unless, God has different plans, I will ever be able to find them. They were a couple. When I was in university, I lived in their basement, and they had a little baby upstairs, and they thought they were going to have some nice little university student move into their basement and help kind of pay rent. Those poor people had no idea the terror that I caused in their home. And I don't remember their name. I don't have any financial records. I don't know their address. I don't know where they are. I'll never be able to really make that amend, but I'm willing to the second that I'm able to. And so I believe that one, as I said, my list is clean. My list is finished because I know that I would. Oh man, I'd give anything. I would give anything to know where they were. They lived in Lethbridge in about 1996 on a place called Iroquois Drive. That's all I remember. So if anybody knows, if you can point me in the right direction, I'd appreciate it. But that's about all I know. Other than that, guys, like I cleaned up, all of my employment amends that I had, and the toughest ones were obviously with my parents, and really the toughest amend that I had to make was with my mom. And my dad is a very kind of happy-go-lucky, very forgiving, jovial kind of guy. And so when I was about 90 days sober, I went to go make amends with my father. I explained, he told me the thing that I did that harmed him the most, and that was good. And about 90 days sober, he accepted my amend and we were good. My mom, on the other hand, was a completely different story. My mom would not accept my amend whatsoever for my first 4 years. So 4 years before she was willing to even hear anything. And it was because she needed to see evidence of change, a lot of it, because I had broken her heart so many times. And there were so many broken promises and so many lies over and over and over and over for years, and in and out of treatment centers and in and out of hospitals, and all the lies and all the stolen money and all that kind of stuff. It took a long time, and you know, I remember you know, showing evidence of change. I remember the first time showing up at my parents' house for Christmas one year, and I had presents for them with money that I had made on my own, and the presents were even wrapped in my own wrapping paper when I got there. And my mom was completely like just blown away, okay, that I had done that. That was a major turning point in terms of me showing that I cared about these people, okay, that I was no longer, you know, Chuck Chamberlain, great AA speaker, says the transition we need to make, that I need to make as an alcoholic in Alcoholics Anonymous, is a transition from being a taker to a giver, okay? That's the great transition that we need to make. And when I showed up with those presents that day, that began to show my mom that I was making that transition, that I cared about them. And I didn't just say, again, guys, I can fake caring, but I can't fake showing up. And you especially can't fake showing up with Christmas presents that are wrapped and bought with my own money for the first time ever, okay? Other Christmases, I mean, quite literally, I spent Christmases in the mental hospital, in the psych wards where I was at for Christmases in the past, okay? This is showing fundamental change. I remember my parents, the first time when they were going away on a vacation, and they called me. I was probably about 2 or 3 years sober, and they said, Kevin, we're going away. We need someone to come and look after the plants. Kevin, would you come and water the plants while we're gone? And I remember they gave me like a key to their place again. They gave me a key to their house again, so I could go and water the plants while they were gone. Now, I want to be clear. They still left the dog and cat with someone else. Okay? I wasn't entrusted with the dog and cat yet, but the plants, they felt I could handle the plants, and they gave me that key. And I'll tell you what, man, I could not have been more proud and been more grateful and taken better care of those plants. There's never been better plants taken care of in the history of the world. Okay? I would polish the plants and water the plants and talk to the plants. I'd call my sponsor before I went to go take care of the plants. Okay? And man, I took excellent care of those plants. And my parents came home and they saw I took very good care of those plants, and they were very proud of me. And then they asked for the key back. Okay? As they should have. Okay? But you know what happened for me and my mom in particular is when I was about 4 years sober, one night my mom called me. My dad was out of town. It's late. It's like 3 o'clock in the morning. Okay. I got a call from my mom. My dad's gone. He's traveling for work. My mom was sick in the middle of the night, and she needed to go to the hospital. And she called me. You understand what I mean? Like, she called me. She called me to help her. And I could not have driven faster or felt more love for my little mom in that moment. And I took her to the hospital, and we sat in the waiting room at 3 o'clock in the morning, and we started talking there. And I want you guys to know that through God's grace and the program of Alcoholics Anonymous, sitting in that waiting room with her is where my mom accepted my very first formal Step 9 amend. That's where it happened. And how do you explain this to people that aren't in AA? How could they even begin to understand what we have here? What's available to us in Alcoholics Anonymous? Moments like that are beyond God's grace. It's what has happened in my life, the transformation that's happened in my life is really just incredible. In terms of work, I want to share some stuff with you guys about, my career. And I know that, having a career is not, necessary in AA, and it's not always a gauge of success. But I want to share with you just over the last little while what's happened for me. When I'm drinking, first of all, guys, there's no job. Okay, I want to be clear about that. When I drink, I drink. I don't work. Okay, and so I was very, very, very unemployed and unemployable for many years drinking. My first year sober, not my last year drinking, but my first year sober, I had 11 jobs that year. Okay, I couldn't hold a job sober. It took me probably about that first 4 years before I could learn to hold a job. Because some of the things that, these employers, guys, they are just absolutely obsessed with what time you show up at work. I don't know what it is. These people, it's like a sickness with them that you have to show up on time. And every day they want you to go. Anyway, so suffice to say, it took a long time, and I was still really struggling with a lot of defects of character, selfishness and dishonesty and laziness. Okay, and fear. Where did the laziness come from, guys? The laziness, I'll tell you, came from fear, man. It just came from fear. I was just terrified. I was terrified of my own shadow. I was terrified to do anything. I was terrified to try. I was terrified to fail. I was terrified of everything. And so it took a long time, but little by little, I remember my first job was, cleaning houses in AA. Cleaning houses. We drive around in a van. And I was, we'd get to the people's houses, and I was the new guy on the crew. So guess what I got to clean, okay? I got to clean the toilets, 5-6 houses a day. And that's what I did in early sobriety, okay? Then a little later, I got a job at a restaurant called Quiznos. I don't know if you have Quiznos in South Africa or Sweden or whatnot. It's a little sandwich shop. And I was 22 years old, just gotten out of a treatment center. I was 22 when my supervisor was 15, okay? And I had to take orders and direction from this 15-year-old all day. Okay, it was humble beginnings, but little by little, guys, I went and got my degree back in university. And I had one of the first things I had to do is go make amends to that university. Okay, before I could go back to the university, I literally, because of my behavior when I had been there before, so I went and made amends to that university, and I got my degree. I finished my degree in university when I was still living in a halfway house. I was still living like in a sober living house when I finished my degree in university. And little by little, I got that job. I got my degree, and little by little, I got into the business of sales. And so little by little, I started to get, little sales jobs, professional selling jobs for, I'm in the oil business. And little by little, I started to get, a little bit better jobs. And I remember the first time that they gave me a pass card into this big skyscraper downtown where my office was. And I could remember clearly doing drugs in the back alley behind that building downtown. Okay. There's no way, it's an impossibility. That kind of thing cannot happen. And little by little, I started to get better jobs. And the company I work for today, I started here 6 years ago. I'm in my office right now. Hang on a second. There, you can see, I'm in my office right now. This is my downtown office, okay? I started here about 6 years ago. I started out just as a salesman. And then about 3 years ago, they said to me, Kevin, we think you're doing an excellent job. And so we would like to make you the manager of our Canadian business. And so I terrified, I said, okay, sure. And I began to, lead our Canadian team, sales team. And, all I need to do was number one, show up. Because I don't know about you guys, but I'm not a show upper. Okay. I don't excel at showing up. Okay. I'm a 100-yard dash specialist. Okay. For 100 yards, I can be anything you want me to be. But the problem is life is a marathon. Okay. And I don't finish anything. I'm a quitter by nature. Okay. And so the first thing I need to do when I took this management job on was to show up. As Chuck Chamberlain says, it's always a 12-step call. I always want to be of service when I'm at work. It's a 12-step call to my clients. It's a 12-step call to the people that report to me. It's a 12-step call to my bosses. Okay. I always want to see how I can be of love and service. And I will tell you guys as well, step 11, particularly meditation, has everything to do with helping me maintain emotional balance, okay, in what I do. And then, so about 3 years ago, I took on this job managing Canada, our Canadian business. And then about 2 months ago, they came to me and said, Kevin, you've done such an excellent job managing our Canadian business that we would like you to now manage our global sales team. And that's what happened about 2 months ago. I was promoted into this role where I manage our global sales team worldwide now. And to go from being a guy who used to do dope in the back alley behind this building that I currently work in, to being asked to manage our global sales team internationally, the US, Gulf of Mexico, everywhere, can only happen through God's grace and the program of Alcoholics Anonymous, and certainly through the process of steps 8 and 9 and the profound change that steps 8 and 9 have had on me, on who I am. This is not just about physical sobriety. This is about an absolute change in my character and the character that God has molded me to be as a result of this work. I'm incredibly humbled and grateful to have had the chance to speak with you guys in the middle of my workday. This is my lunch hour, but what better way to spend my lunch hour on a Friday than talking with all my beautiful friends around the world. And thanks to Steve for asking me to share. And I love y'all. Thank you.